Hello, listeners. Jordan here. I just want to let you know that you can listen to Nighttime early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Include it with Prime.
You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Handsome Air and Airport. We are here. We have a mission to keep Canada weird by rounding up and reviewing the offbeat and unusual news stories that played out across Canada over the past week. But before we do that, let's break the ice. How are you? What's new? What's going on?
How am I? I'm alive. That's the biggest accomplishment I can state for the day.
Mm-hmm. And was there any doubt? Was there a risk of you dying over the last week? Did something traumatic happen?
Something traumatic did happen. Did anything... Let me flip this one back at you. Did anything traumatic happen to you these past few days?
Yes, it did.
Oh, we both had something traumatic happen?
Yeah, actually, I think I even have a video on my phone of you talking to a cop. Let's see if people can hear this.
Okay, and did you see anything different?
No, the way he laid it out was how I saw it. Yeah.
And where were you sitting?
I was sitting in the passenger front seat.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that gives a little hint of what's going on. My car was wrecked. I was behind the wheel. Handsome Air and Airport. You were in shotgun.
I was in shotgun, yeah. And to complete the Nighttime Podcast, Keep Canada Weird trifecta, tell us who was in the back seat.
Randy Stonewall, our sometimes third wheel on the show, was in the back seat, and he heroically saw the impact before it even happened. Randy shouted, "Oh no!" as a car came barreling into us. It wasn't our fault. Someone went through a red light, slammed into another car or truck. Then that truck slammed into us. It happened directly outside of a Robin's Donuts.
Yeah, that's right.
To, again, further complete the trifecta. Fortunately, no one was hurt. A couple cars were dinged up. Mine was, I had the least amount of damage on the front of my car, but it's like if you look at the car the wrong way, it costs like $3,500 to repair it. So I'm sure whatever is going to happen with mine is going to cost some person's insurance company $3,000 to $6,000 to fix it. But we got a story to tell. Anything you want to say about the whole interaction with the police or the other drivers, or seeing me spring into action and exchange insurance info?
Yeah, I think Randy's collision goggles being on before we left the house was good. He saw the whole thing before it even happened.
And Scott, what part of the back is the car seats? You had to be behind the passenger.
Yeah.
Good enough.
Although you were the one who saw it, or was it Aaron? So one of you said, like, I
saw it
I
first,
saw it first. I was like Jordan, like, because I saw the guy come.
Yep. I get you.
Yeah.
Okay. So guys,
Everything in those circumstances does happen in slow motion whenever somebody's been in an automobile accident. I was pretty calm in the moment. I was like, oh, it's gonna crack into us, but I don't think it's gonna hit us at a concerning speed.
Yeah.
Which it didn't. But nobody was hurt, thankfully. Nobody in any of the vehicles.
Yeah, including like the
luckily was hurt.
Yeah, the car that was responsible for it had two young children in the back seat who both were fine despite the airbags going off and everything. So, yeah, it was a bit scary. I was glad my kids weren't in the car. I was glad Ken Tiggs wasn't in the car.
We all gave our statements to the police officers, the friendly police officers that we encountered on that day, who guided us through the legal process of the accident scene.
No one gave us the finger. None of the cops.
None of the cops gave us the finger. No.
It all went pretty smooth, and maybe that allows us to move on to what we're really here to do: keep Canada weird with some great stories. But first, let's hear from some Keep Canada Weird listeners. We're going to hear from a bunch of them tonight, because I think last week when we began airing Robin's Donuts ads as a way to prop up our favorite Canadian coffee chain, we opened Pandora's box. And oh my goodness, I've been flooded with amazing ads for Robin's Donuts. If Robin's Donuts executives are listening on this podcast, they're just going to be salivating, because we got some gold here tonight. But first, let's hear from a listener named Jeff, who's confused about the whole thing that we're doing relating to Robin's Donuts. Here's what Jeff had to say.
Hey boys, Jeff from Vancouver Island. Big fan of the podcast, especially all the animal uprising information. listen, I just finished the August 20th episode, and I tuned into the whole Robin's Donuts gorilla promotion bit, and I gotta say I'm a little bit confused. Like, I'm not sure what you guys were promoting exactly, but it sure as heck wasn't gorillas. I even looked at the YouTube video thinking maybe you guys be rocking some gorilla suits or something, but no. So to make up for this missed opportunity, I thought I'd help you guys out, throw in some fun and weird facts about gorillas. Um, did you know that gorillas, they sing and they hum while they're eating food they love? I guess that's like me. I don't know. They're scared of water, and they're also scared of caterpillars. Sissies. Anyways, keep on keeping Canada weird. Love you guys. Love the show.
So Jeff misunderstood, sincerely and seriously misunderstood our idea that it's a guerrilla promotional campaign. What we mean by that is not we're promoting Robin's Donuts and the animals gorillas. We are taking like a guerrilla approach to promoting Robin's Donuts without their knowledge or permission. Anything you want to say to Jeff to help get him out of the dark?
I'd like to say to Jeff, be careful what you say about the gorillas. You know, them being afraid of caterpillars, I'm sure they have a very specific and reasonable reason as to why they fear the caterpillar. And if you have something to say about the gorilla, say it to its face.
See how scared it is of a Jeff. Maybe scared of a caterpillar, but I think Jeff's face will get a bit of a bite.
Or a complete clobber, you know, like just a haymaker right to his skull, you know. It's why I keep a bucket of water next to my bed at night.
Just in case.
Just in case a gorilla crawls in and I'm like, get out of here. And I throw the bucket of water at him.
Like I said, Jeff, the guerrilla aspect of our promotional campaign is that Robin's Donuts is not aware of it, but they should be, because we have some golden Robin's Donuts ads that will be airing tonight. Let's start right off with a listener named Johan, who has provided us with a Robin's Donuts ad that surely beats anything Robin's has ever produced themselves. Listen to this magic.
Tired of those other guys cluttering up every corner, forcing weak coffee and stale donuts down your gullet in the name of convenience? Those fraudsters who boast the maple leaf but aren't even Canadian. But hey, who needs convenience when you can have a treasure? At Robin's Donuts, we're a little harder to find, but that's the beauty of it. You're not just getting a donut, you're finding a hidden gem, a taste of true Canadian goodness, brewed fresh and baked to perfection. So next time you're craving something extraordinary, skip the other guys and seek out the treasure. Robin's Donuts, it's worth a search. As much as I love Robin's Donuts, this is not a real advertisement. It's made for the Nighttime Podcast and for Aaron and Jordan's pure pleasure.
That was well done.
That was well done. And I love the disclaimer at the end too. That was possibly my favorite part. It kind of reminded me a bit of that marketing campaign, the I Am Canadian commercials. Do you remember those?
Yeah, it was a beer commercial, right? For Molson Canadian.
Yeah, and the guy would be standing up on the stage and he'd be proclaiming all of the Canadian things that he's proud of, and at the end he would shout, "I am Canadian." And it kind of felt like that, where I was waiting for him to say, "I am a Robin's customer." Or I am a gorilla.
Well, we will have some additional takes on some classic songs and themes in the form of Robin's Donuts ads as we go. But let's get into it here. We've got some great stories. And I want to start with one that it played out just before we went live last week. So had we had a little more time, it would have fit into last week's episode. But I'm glad we waited, because things have developed in an even more bizarre and nonsensical way. This is the story of a bear attack in Halifax. News quickly spread when a park near Halifax saw a large emergency response last Sunday. Ambulances, police, helicopters, and Department of Natural Resources staff were all on scene. But after the situation calmed, the park was temporarily closed with signs warning of possible bears in the area. However, just a day later, the park reopened, and the Department of Natural Resources issued a press release claiming that the incident turned out not to be related to wildlife or bears. But here's the twist. The man who was injured in the incident spoke out on the news, claiming it was a bear that got him. Listen to this.
I thought that was going to be the end of me. And
back at the hospital for the second time this week, Wallace England insists he's lucky to be alive after an unusual and terrifying incident. He says he was attacked by a bear on a busy walking trail. It happened late Saturday night out of the blue.
Rest my eyes for a minute before I went home, and I woke up to the sound of panting over me, and I thought I was dreaming. And
he says a large black bear was leaning over him, and when he moved, the animal attacked.
Jumped on my chest and slapped me inside the head, threw me against a pile of rocks. So I jumped over the rocks and hid behind them.
Eventually, he says the bear let him go. He assumed it had left, but it hadn't, and the worst was yet to come.
As I stood up, it attacked me the second time. I managed to get a hold of the bear on both sides of its face, and I just held on, and it was throwing me around and couldn't get its teeth in me.
Covered in dirt and his own blood, England had deep cuts along his arms and the side of his face that needed stitches. His badly damaged head also needed staples.
They were pretty severe wounds. I had over 100 stitches and 12 or 15 staples in my head.
The Department of Natural Resources and Renewables launched an immediate investigation, closing the trail and setting up traps. But 3 days later, the department concluded there was no attack. In a statement, it says it set up an incident management team, including staff, conservation officers, a DNRR helicopter, and partnered with local law enforcement to thoroughly investigate the matter, and no confirming evidence was found at the scene. The barriers were removed this afternoon, and the trail reopened. But England maintains he knows what he saw and what attacked him. The proof no further than the injuries that have sent him to hospital twice this week. Bruce, we reached out to the RCMP to see what they had to say on the matter. They told us they were called to the scene early Monday morning after getting a report that a man had been attacked by a bear. They did not feel that criminality was a factor in how the man got injuries, so they referred the matter to DNRR and concluded their investigation. Bruce?
Fascinating story, a real mystery.
So that's a strange one. And for people who are listening and they don't see the audio or they don't see the video, there is photos of this man seriously injured when they brought him out of the woods, covered in blood, large cuts on his arms, cuts on his head. But my first thought when I saw the cuts that this man had is it doesn't look consistent with what I would expect like a bear's claws to do to you. Like his cuts all looked very clean. It looked as if he got in a fight with like a guy with a machete or something. Like they looked like clean slices up and down his arms and across his head. What's your take on this?
Well, I'm not going to speak to what the cuts looked like because from the pictures that I saw, the only ones that I've seen are what are in the news broadcast that we just listened to. Mm-hmm. And those looked like they were stapled by the time they took photos of them. Mm-hmm. So we couldn't really get an idea of how open and wide the cuts were because he had already been to the hospital and he had already had it, stitches and staples and all of those things. So have you seen other photos before?
Yeah. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole with this story. I watched and read a lot about this, but yeah, the cuts on his head, like in that news clip, again, they were stapled and had stitches or whatever, but he has photos of him like lying in the hospital bed. And again, It looks like he was sliced up with a machete. They're straight lines, clean cuts, almost like surgical looking, but certainly serious. Like he's covered in mud and blood and everything else. But there was an investigation done, and the Department of Natural Resources was satisfied enough that there was not a wildlife or a bear involved, that they opened the park, and that was the end of it. But that didn't stop people online from talking. And I want to read you something else. And this is a short piece related to the man involved in that news clip who claimed to be attacked by a bear. It was a press release by the RCMP just a month prior to this happening, about 2 months prior, on July 3rd of 2024, related to an incident involving this man just a couple kilometers away from where he claims he was attacked by a bear. So the headline was RCMP Halifax Regional Department has charged a man involved in an assault in Eastern Passage. Yesterday at approximately 11:45 p.m., RCMP responded to a report of an assault on Government Wharf Road. RCMP officers learned that two men and a woman were on the deck of a fishing boat when an intoxicated man known to them jumped on the deck of the boat. The man grabbed a knife and moved towards the trio in a threatening manner. One of the men on the vessel tackled the man, disarmed him, and brought him ashore and called for help. Shortly after midnight, RCMP officers attended a home on, and it says the name of a street in Eastern Passage, and safely arrested the 39-year-old man involved in the incident. Wallace England has been charged with an assault and assault with a weapon. Now, I don't know if it's the same guy, but two Wallace Englands involved in bizarre events within like 2 kilometers of each other. I don't know. The age checks out. I'm saying it must be the same guy.
It's more than likely the same guy. But none of those circumstances mention a bear.
Yeah.
So this is the first time then it sounds like that he's brought bears into the equation. So obviously something happened to him. So
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of, you always hear about when somebody who's involved in criminal activity gets shot and they don't want to go to the hospital because at the hospital they have to report any kind of wounds by bullet or
they don't want
whatever.
the cops involved and the questions like who shot you.
Yeah. So they go to a shady vet and the vet stitches them up and gets the bullet out and cauterizes the wound or whatever. I don't know. So you see that in the movies and TV shows all the time. So obviously this guy, something happened to him, God knows what, but he did not want to go to the hospital with the truth. So he made up this bear story.
That's what it seems.
And I like how he had it reminded me of the first Rocky. So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the very first Rocky.
Spoiler alert and shame on you if you haven't seen it.
And shame on you. Yeah. One of the greatest films of all time. Don't laugh at that. It's true.
I know.
Okay. I'm really distracted now. You really bothered me by that.
So what does this incident have to do with Rocky?
Okay. Here's how it connects with Rocky. So in Rocky, he doesn't win in the end, but boy, he puts up a fight, and that's what the story is. It's the heart that he shows in the fight. It's the journey to get to the fight. It's everything he's put into it, and he just gives it everything he has. Doesn't matter if he wins or he loses. It's all about the heart. So in this battle, fictitious or not, the way he crafted it, I thought was perfect. A good piece of fiction because, he could have been overzealous with his imagination and he could have said, and then I grabbed the bear by the neck and I strangled it to death and then I dragged it home and skinned it and its head is up above my mantle. And, he could have went on and on and on about it because he's making it up. So you can say whatever you want, but he doesn't. So he said, okay, I'm going to tell the story as if, the bear does beat me, but I do get a few good Rocky Balboa shots in on him. Like in particular, I love the one where he says, after he had gotten thrown against the rocks or whatever, and then he thought the bear had left, and then the bear comes back and starts mauling him again, and then he's able to grab the bear by both sides of its face, and the bear is like swinging him around. I picture him being like a helicopter blade, just going around and around and around.
Yeah.
I thought that was just great storytelling. And it's like, this guy seems like to be able to craft this narrative. I feel like this isn't just your run of the mill person who's not all there, and they're just kind of stumbling into the hospital being like, bear, but this guy, he had a lot of thought and effort put into it. And I appreciate it, and I commend him for it, to be honest. And I'd like to see what he comes up with next.
I just don't like the beginning because the way the story starts is he's walking through the woods. He gets tired, so he lays down, goes to sleep, and wakes up with a bear breathing in his face. I just don't think that's a great start for a story. Why couldn't he have just said I was walking through the woods and a bear just walked out in front of me? Because saying like you laid down and went to sleep, maybe if you got it.
Yeah, but I'm going to defend this
Okay.
too, because he's picturing it like a movie. So I think it's more cinematic to be you're sleeping in the woods, and then all of a sudden, the camera is kind of acting as your groggy eyes as they're slowly opening and they're slowly clearing, and you just hear this. And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then all of a sudden, everything clear as a bell just pops in front of you, this bear's snout. And you're like, oh my God, a bear. He's thinking of the movie that is going to be made about his life and made about his bear story. Like he's thinking so many steps
Yeah.
ahead here. This guy's a genius.
Let's move on from this guy though. If anyone knows anything else about this story, I'm all ears. I'm fascinated by the story of the bear attack and the Department of Natural Resources that claim it didn't happen. I especially like he had the guts to go on the news and tell his story despite the Department of Natural Resources reopening the park.
Oh, yeah.
But
I really appreciate it. But before we
Okay.
move on, you know what I really wish that this news story had in it for details was how the Department of Natural Resources came to that conclusion. It would have been nice to hear we didn't find any bear tracks. We didn't find any, fibers of the bear anywhere. There were no fibers, hairs on the man. Like it would have been cool to have like, here's the scientific way that we concluded there's 100% no bears in this area.
Yeah, that would be interesting. You called him a genius. Speaking of geniuses, I want to pass the mic over to Tom. He's a listener who provided a Robin's Donuts ad that evokes a classic song from the 1980s. See if you can pick it out.
I was tired of their coffee. It wasn't tasting so good. And that new flatbread pizza wasn't tasting like it should. So I strolled into Robin's, and she said, welcome you. So I ordered off the menu, and now I'm feeling less blue. If you like freshly baked pastries and fresh coffee grains, if you're not into Timmy's, then you have half a brain. Meet me at the local Robin's. We'll cut through all the cheesecake and grab a handful of napkins and make good our escape. Drop by Robin's today. We don't mind flipping you the bird.
Holy moly.
That's next level, right?
Oh, the Keep Canada Weird Army came out swinging this week on the Robbins
They're
ads.
not done. I was actually, as I was preparing tonight, I kept thinking like, so many people listening, they don't even have Robin's Donuts in their country, let alone their area. And I have about 45 minutes of Robin's Donuts ads to share. But
now I can't Google because, Lord and Savior Pat from Peterborough would
he won't have it. No,
he'll strike me down. But I don't think they serve. Did I hear cheesecake was listed there as a?
Yeah, we can cut through the cheesecake.
I don't think Robin serves cheesecake. Maybe before next week's episode, you could look into that for me.
Yeah, I'll let you know next week.
Okay, thank you.
Let's move on to the next story. We just covered the mystery of the maybe bear attack in Halifax. We got another mystery playing out across Canada. This one in Vancouver doesn't involve animals. It doesn't involve wildlife. Of all things, it involves motorhomes, RVs, recreational vehicles. Residents in Vancouver's west side are frustrated by some large RV-type camper vehicles that have been parked on a residential street for years, likely in violation of city bylaws. But these aren't abandoned RVs. They've been drawing power from a nearly $4.4 million home via a series of extension cords that have been daisy-chained across the property. Listen to what's going on in Vancouver.
They're plugged in and appear to be occupied. But Char Levine says she doesn't know who, if anyone, lives inside the RVs stationed on this residential street.
I'm very curious if they're running an Airbnb or a VRBO. It's difficult to tell. I don't know if they're renting it out to students for the year.
And who could be using the electricity of this Dunbar home, assessed at more than $4.4 million for years now. The motorhome's so integrated they're visible on Google Street View in some capacity, as far back as 2018.
And I really just tried to ignore it for the longest time until I just couldn't anymore, because you can't get through that street.
Finally, she contacted the city of Vancouver about the issue. The city says 2 tickets were issued a few days ago, but the RVs still haven't moved.
It has to go to a supervisor because it's an oversized vehicle. The supervisor then has to give a ticket to somebody else to go investigate, and he says it's very low priority.
No answer at the motorhomes when we knocked, but we did speak to the owner of the home they're attached to.
We are going to camp.
Who claims they're only for personal use, for family camping trips.
I'd like to see them gone. I really would. And I'd like to see the city enforce the parking laws around here.
The city says the RVs could eventually be towed if they're not moved first.
I don't see what the big deal is here.
Okay.
Clearly, the person who owns the $4 million mansion has just had the RVs parked outside for 6 years because they're going to camp.
Yeah, it's just, sometimes the simplest answer is the correct one. Camping.
Yeah, and if you got to run an extension cord through it, you might as well run it through the trees, have the extension cord coming out of the mail slot in the front door. It's ridiculous. But aside from that explanation, maybe they just have them parked there because they're going to go camping sometime soon. If something different is going on, I really don't know what it could be. I can't imagine it's an Airbnb or VRBO or whatever. That doesn't make sense.
No, you'd see way more activity around these campers than them just sitting there. Like if they were,
and you'd be able to find the listings online too.
Yeah, and the neighbor would have stated, yeah, there's people coming in and out of them all the time, or they're always doing this or that with them, but they're just sitting there. And yeah, plugged in, but just sitting there, not being used, it seems.
Yeah, I can only imagine someone's living in them and they didn't want to disclose that to the news maybe. And someone said, like, if anyone asks, just say, we're going to go camping. But that explanation doesn't really, that lands with a pretty dull thud.
And why wouldn't they, if that's the case, why the people who are living in them, why wouldn't they just stay in the big mansion that they're plugged into?
Yeah. It's almost like they're providing housing for like their least likable family member or something.
Yeah, it's like from the Christmas Vacation.
In Christmas Vacation, it was it Brother Merle? Do you remember his name?
I don't remember his name, and I'm not allowed to look it up, but
yeah, but his RV was like this eyesore. These RVs, they look brand new. They look gorgeous.
No, they're not.
In front of a gorgeous house. It is a weird mystery. You could probably get away with something like this in a lot of neighborhoods, but in like a upper class, high end neighborhood, yeah, I could see why the neighbors are kind of asking questions. I'd be a little concerned about it as well. But what can you do aside from calling parking enforcing and bylaw enforcement?
Well, I would definitely be curious if I lived in that neighborhood. Would I care so much as to do something about it? No, I think that's a bit of a stretch. Like to go through
on the
and
news
call the
about it?
authorities and go on the news and all of these things, because she's stating that you can't drive past them. But when you saw the picture of the Google Street View in the news story, you can clearly drive past them,
Yeah, it's not like blocking the road. And for everybody out there who's listening right now and screaming the name of the uncle from Christmas Vacation, Madeline Klein just provided it in the chat. It's Uncle Eddie.
Uncle Eddie. Okay, well, that's a natural way for us to get the information. We'll have to check in with Pat from Peterborough to see if that's okay, like to get confirmation that that's okay. I think it will be. I think he'll be fine with that.
It's a gray area right now.
But I think it's part of a conversation. So when we're recording these live on YouTube on Tuesday evenings, which any of the podcast listeners out there are welcome to join us at. When people are responding to what we're saying in the chat, that's a conversation that we're having with the people who are watching the live stream. So if they feed us information that way, I think it's okay.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Pat gives us a hard time and blocks access to the chat, but we'll see what happens.
If Pat says, no, we can't gain information that way, then we can't.
Then so be it.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's be one of those kind of things.
Absolutely, yeah.
This situation with the parking outside of this home reminds me of a story we covered a few weeks back. We heard the story of the police officers in Toronto who were parked illegally in a loading zone. A fellow with a camera filmed it and gave the police a hard time. The police in turn gave him the middle finger. We have a listener named Adam who wants to chime in on that story. He supports the police parking wherever they want, but for reasons that actually make quite a bit of sense. Listen to this. Maybe it is in the best interest of society to allow police to not park in our parking spots. Here it comes.
Hello, gentlemen. Adam here, your correspondent from the nation's capital. Wanted to add a point of difference to your discussion on the August 20th episode regarding police parking in the loading zone. Jordan, I believe you are on the side that police should park where everyone else parks. I totally disagree. I prefer my first responders to park in loading zones, in front of hydrants, basically anywhere I can't park. Because it leaves a space available for the rest of us. Plus, they are either darting in for a quick coffee or responding to a call. Either way, they're doing us a service by parking where we can't. Hope this adds something to your story. Love the show. Have a good one.
I hadn't considered that, and he does make a point. You know, if police, they want to stretch the law, bend the law in their favor. If it frees up a parking spot for a good, honest person to go in, there is at least a light at the end of the tunnel of malfeasance.
Mm-hmm. And I think each job in the world has its perks, right? So I'm sure if you work at a restaurant, you know, a coffee shop, I'm sure you get free coffee every now and then, right? You know, you get, if you work at a retail outlet, you get discounts on clothing and the things that you sell. That's very common. And as a police officer, I think you get certain perks. You get to park in places that other people aren't allowed to park in. And I think that's fine.
Since we're kind of on the topic of law enforcement, emergencies, emergency responders, do you think you got it in you to hear another nonsensical Canadian 911 call?
Yeah. Since you already have it queued up, I guess I will.
This is round 3. We heard the guy complaining about the sirens the first time. The second time we heard the sweet old lady calling to try to get her bank's phone number. Let's hear what happens when you call 911 to see if they provide an emergency ride service. Listen to this.
911, do you need police, fire, ambulance?
This is in terms of an officer. I'm supposed to have a trip to Union Station. The ride that was supposed to show up for me this morning did not. And I don't know how you guys work with services in terms of that, because I'm in a taxi right now, but it's not going to get me to the station on time for my train to board at 9:45.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you're in a taxi cab and you think you're going to be late for your train ride at Union Station?
Yeah.
And so what would you like an officer to do?
Do you guys offer emergency ride services or not?
An emergency ride service?
No, I don't know how you guys operate with.
Well, I can assure you we don't do that.
My apologies.
Okay, so you can call a cab or get in the cab and go to your appointment. Okay? You're welcome.
Okay.
Bye.
You didn't feel bad for the little old lady who called in to get her bank's phone number because maybe she was ignorant to what 911 did and all this stuff. I kind of felt like this caller was of an age group where they should have known that that's not something that emergency calls are for.
Yeah, they do sound like, you know, if I were to ballpark their age based off of the sound of their voice, maybe early 30s. something like that.
I maybe even would have went younger, maybe 25.
Could be, yeah, anywhere from mid 20s to mid 30s, I
Mhm.
think.
And I kind of feel like they knew it wasn't the right thing to do because they said several times something like things to the effect of like I don't know like what services you guys offer in terms of that. It's like come on. You know that we're
Hmm.
not going to send like she's in a taxi. I feel like what she hoped would happen is that they were going to send an officer with their lights on tearing through traffic, pull her out of the taxi and continue on to get her to the station in time by using their, you know, their lights and sirens or something. Is that
Hmm.
maybe what she was asking for? I think so.
Yeah, like this cab isn't going fast enough to get me there. But if I could get into an emergency vehicle with the sirens on that's allowed to go over the speed limit, then yes, that will get me there on time. But I would like to see the transfer from the taxi to the police car. Like, does the police car pull up alongside the taxi? Because
Just
there's not
jump.
enough time to slow down and pull over. So, yeah, she has to
Yeah.
leap from the taxi into the police car. That would
Yeah.
be great.
Oh.
But in her defense, now, maybe this appointment is extremely important. So have you thought
Well,
about
I don't
that
know.
part of it?
Was there an appointment? I think the 911 operator brought up the appointment. She just had a train to catch at Union Station. It was the 911 operator who said something like, you know,
Yeah,
make it to
appointment
your
or something.
appointment.
But maybe she's getting the train to an appointment, like a medical appointment.
Okay, yeah, I have a surgery in Brampton. I need to
Yeah.
get at the train at Union
Yeah,
Station.
I'm gonna
Oh God.
this taxi driver is going so slow. There's so many like parked RVs on the side of the street and he's having to drive around them and he can't get through and he has to go up a different street and then there's more parked RVs and then we just got attacked by a bear. So there could be a lot going on where it's like, you know what? I need an emergency vehicle, a police vehicle with sirens that can just get me there as quick as possible. But one time, I do have a story that this reminds me of. One time, and this was, you know, in my carefree early-ish
30s,
20s. Yeah,
40s.
last week.
Yeah, you're carefree because now you're this worry wart.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a Debbie Downer, but yeah, I think I was around 24. Me and my cousin were having a time in downtown Sydney one Saturday evening, and things got a little too far with in terms of how much alcohol we drank, but he took it even further. He was one of the drunkest people I've ever seen in my life. And and he's a big guy, and I'm trying to like carry him around, and I don't have any money. And he's got money in his bank account, but we can't, he's too drunk to tell me the code. So I drag him into this bank machine, and I'm, you know, like inside the bank machine, you know, like the bank, but they have like the doors locked to the regular bank, but you can get into the
Yeah, like the
machine.
aquarium section.
The
It's like an
aquarium,
aquarium
yeah.
with the ATM in it.
So I drag him in there and I have no money on me and we can't get home. And it's like, you know, 4 in the morning or something. And and I'm like, what's your code? And he keeps telling me his girlfriend's name was Bobby, and he keeps saying, or his ex-girlfriend's name was Bobby. And he keeps saying Bobby.com. I'm like, what? What's your code, man? Bobby.com. And he's just laying on the floor
Oh my
inside the bank
God.
machine, like Bobby.com. And so I start putting in Bobby.com, you know, and I'm trying all these different versions of it. Sure enough, we're locked out of his,
Yeah.
you know, after the 3 tries, we're locked out. So now I'm like, okay, my cousin is so drunk he can't stand. It's 4 in the morning, downtown Sydney. We have no way home. This is before cell phones, you know. I mean, cell phones were invented, but we didn't have cell phones on us. So I didn't know what to do. So a police officer was just kind of like making the rounds, you know, in his police vehicle. And so I waved him
Oh
down
my God.
and he pulled over and I said, I'm sorry, man, but my cousin is really intoxicated. I'm drunk. We can't get home. I've got no money. We're locked out of his bank card. Can you give us a ride? And he looked at us. He's like, you know what? Normally I'd say no, but it's a pretty slow night. Hop in.
He drove. This
He
is
drove
such
us home. Yeah.
This is such a Cape Breton story.
Yeah, he drove us home so that my dad had the interesting, visual of seeing a police car taking me and my cousin home because I was living at my dad's at the time, taking me and my cousin home in a cop car that night or that early morning.
Wow. And just like, see you later, buddy. Thanks.
See ya. Thanks, Tim.
Wow. That story is almost as ridiculous as one. I believe the pronunciation of her name is Ayla, Aila, Ayla. She's a teenager, and she's sharing a story of, and I think this is in response to some of the stories we discussed last week about teenagers being out of control. She's, I guess, going to give us a look on the inside of how crazy it actually is. This involves Tim Hortons, it involves teenagers, and it involves haircuts. Listen to this.
Hi, Jordan. Hi, Aaron. I'm a listener from Ontario. I'm 17 years old, and I was just listening to the latest Keep Canada Weird episode, and I wanted to share a story about teenagers and Tim Hortons in my city. So, Tim Hortons is near my school. I go there a lot, even though the nighttime, not a fan of it. But in the bathrooms here, some students have decided to go there to do haircuts. So they'll bring in the chair and the towels and the barber tools and just come back after lunch with a new haircut. I think they've started locking down the bathrooms so that students and people just can't, because there'll be groups of like 10, 20, 30 kids going into the family bathrooms at Tim Hortons to do haircuts because they got banned from the school from doing it. So yeah, that's just, I want to share that. Tim Hortons' strange teenage behavior. Thanks for the great show. Bye.
Of all the insane things teenagers do, I didn't know that cutting each other's hair in like barber shop, like these kind of pseudo makeshift barber shops at Tim Hortons was a thing.
Well, it's a thing now. Because the impression I got from her voice message was that they were doing them at the schools, but they are not allowed to anymore.
I got banned, and like the school is like, no more haircuts, get the barber chair out of here. And so they're like, well, just bring it over to Tim's, do it in the bathroom.
Yeah, they'll let you do anything in there.
Well, that is true.
Tim Hortons has no standards of what you can do in their bathroom
or what they serve over their counter.
But what a weird thing, what a weird hill to die on for the schools to like, stop cutting hair, stop practicing a trade. This is a building of scholars and learned people. You need to just take that elsewhere.
We have one final story and two final voicemails that are big ones. Let's tear through this. Let's rally here. Let's start with a story that I'll call lottery win-ish. And I think we covered something like this before, but it caught my eye when CTV News aired a consumer complaint type piece last week that concerned an Ontario woman who won and was unable to collect a large lottery win for a reason that may surprise some people. Listen to the story of the almost lottery win.
I can go anywhere with my volunteer work.
Heather Douglas does a lot of driving as a volunteer and says no matter what city or town she's in, when she gets gas, she often buys lottery tickets. Last August, she bought one for a 649 draw, but didn't check it until March. She won $1,003.
I felt great. I thought those commercials are right. Even though it was only $1,000, I can buy something that I want.
With her busy schedule, Douglas says she only contacted OLG to collect her prize this summer, but she was told she couldn't have her jackpot unless she could tell them the store and intersection where she bought the ticket, something she can't remember.
There's no signs anywhere indicating that you must prove where you bought the ticket. Nowhere. I had no idea that they could do that, and it outraged me.
Douglas says she's frustrated and wants her jackpot.
I would like my money, but not only that, I don't think anybody else should have to go through this.
A spokesperson for OLG told CTV News, when a winning ticket of $1,000 or more is presented for claim, the OLG Prize Center is required to determine the rightful ownership of that ticket. When claiming a prize, you may be asked, where did you purchase the ticket? When did you purchase the ticket? And did you purchase other lottery products such as Encore or another game at the same time? OLG recently reviewed Douglas's case, and she was relieved to finally get her winnings of $1,003.
Thank you, CTV. I was able to get my check, and I thank you for all of the hard work that you helped me to get it. Thank you, CTV.
We can add that story to the plethora of stories that we have that involve like a consumer complaint where the person goes to the news and then suddenly it is the problem is solved. But did you hear, Aaron? She does volunteer work.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that. That must not have been the very first thing that she said.
She's very busy.
Yeah. My volunteer work. My volunteer work takes me everywhere. Where does your regular work take you? Nowhere. Where does your paid work take you? Absolutely nowhere. But guess what? My volunteer work takes me all over the world where I buy lottery tickets at all different places. So many, I can't even remember where I've been because of my volunteer work.
Could she not provide the lottery place with like, I have access to my bank records. You know, you can see when the ticket was bought, cross-reference it here. Like you'd think they'd be able to solve this without just asking, where did you buy it? I don't remember. That's the end of the conversation. Sorry, I can't give you the money.
Yeah, it seems
Shouldn't go
because she had the ticket, right? Didn't she? What was the issue?
I see. Because she discovered the ticket like months later or
Oh,
something. For
okay.
some
So she
reason.
didn't. Yeah,
For
that's
some
right.
re-
That's right. Yeah.
A bunch of time passed, but she should have, like, I guess the only way is if she truly volunteers all over the state or all over the province, buying lottery tickets, doesn't remember when this one was purchased and paid cash.
Yeah. So I guess
That could be the
the lottery commission's concern was that it's been so long since this prize should have been claimed. They're concerned that maybe she just found the ticket somewhere.
Yeah, but I'd say even if you just found the ticket, it's all fair.
Absolutely.
Like, if
Finders
you-
keepers, man. That's
whoever has the ticket should get the money.
yeah.
Regardless of everything.
It should be treated
Unless it could be
should be treated like gold. If you've got
Better
gold
than
in your hand, it's worth its weight in gold. You know, that's cash money. You know, but lottery tickets the same. You know, it doesn't take any skill to buy a lottery ticket. So the effort that you put in should be holding on to it and claiming it. And if you lose a ticket and someone else finds it, then it's theirs.
Yeah, I agree. I guess it sucks she had to go on the news, but at least she get to talk about her volunteer work, which she very clearly cares deeply about. So good for her, and thank you for your great work. And I'm glad you got your $1,000 and some odd dollars of a lottery win.
It was like 1,003 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Like
so she was just over that buffer. It seemed like anything under 1,000, they're like, here you are.
Yeah.
Over that, you got to jump through hoops.
If it had been $999, she wouldn't have even cared.
Yeah. Let's get into two final voicemails. They're both doozies. They're both Robin's Donuts ads. The first one has a bit of a backstory about it. And when someone sends like a voicemail through to me, I see their email address. And when I got this one, I recognized the first and last name of a friend that I haven't talked to in like 10 years. But the one thing that stands out about this friend is they're literally like the best guitar player I've ever heard. They're so good that when they play guitar around me, it used to make me like lightheaded because they were just so fast and technically proficient. I got an email with their name, but it wasn't written as if it was like an old friend or anything like that. It just said, Robin's Donuts ad. My words may not be poetic, but I speak through guitar. So it's like weird they reference guitar. It's the name of my old friend that I haven't talked to in, again, like 10 years. I played the voicemail, the Robin's Donuts ad, and as soon as the guitar started, I recognized the playing as theirs, but it was confirmed it was theirs when about halfway through the Robin's Donuts ad, it goes into this blistering guitar solo. I wish Robin's Donuts aired ads like this one. From Colin.
Robin's Donuts is better than Tim's. Robin's Donuts is better than Tim's. Robin's Donuts is better than Tim's.
I'm going to end it there.
Oh, I remember Colin. Mm-hmm.
Amazing guy. So glad. I didn't know he even listened. I'm so glad to
Yeah.
hear that he listens. So glad to hear us playing again.
Yeah, a blast from the past. Yeah, because we've hung out a number of times because you lived with him for a while.
Yeah. And he had a collection. All he owned was a bunch of guitars.
Yeah. And I remember when I would go over to hang out with you guys, yeah, Colin would be there and always noodling on the guitar.
Just playing guitar solos the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you, Colin. Great Robin's Donuts ad. And I agree, Robin's Donuts is better than Tim's. One last Robin's Donuts ad. This is from B in the United States. And there's like a bit of a catch to this ad for a variety of reasons. I'll let her explain it though. Here it comes.
Hi, Jordan. Hi, Aaron. This is B. I am in New York. I have never been to Canada, and I love listening to your podcast because it gives me a little insight to the wackiness of Canada. It makes me want to visit really bad. But I especially loved the idea of doing an ad for Robin's Donuts without having any idea what Tim Hortons is, what Robin's is. And I am going to trick my coworker into coming in here and recording without seeing the script that I wrote up. So hopefully we'll get it in one go. If not, we'll do a real polished version for y'all and we'll send it in. Daphne, do you have any idea what Tim Hortons is or Robin's Donuts?
I've heard of Tim Hortons when I was in Buffalo State College.
Okay.
They were everywhere because we were very close to the Canadian border. But I don't know what Robin's donuts are.
I don't know if they sell muffins. Are you ready? You ready to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll start. What a day. I'm so glad we got a table here.
I know. This place, Robin's Donuts, is always a happening spot. We're so lucky.
They may be busy, but darn, do they care about us customers?
I feel like one of the Robins. When you're here, you're family.
Exactly. I think I'll have the donut. What about you?
I think I'll have the donut too. Did you hear about what happened at that other place?
No, I try to stay out of toxic discussions about places that fill my heart with darkness. I'm working on myself.
And I am so proud of you. Let's not waste our time talking about that slop shop.
Your donuts, ma'am. Robin's Donuts. You don't have to rob us, but these donuts will steal your heart. So that's our ad. Daphne, would you want to go to Robin's Donuts after hearing about that?
I mean, if the other option is the slop shop, then
Yeah.
I definitely want Robin's Donuts.
Yeah, well, that is our ad. And thank you, Jordan and Aaron. Hopefully we will hear it on the Nighttime Podcast.
Wow.
That was well done. I feel like a high school drama class again.
Yeah, but it also had a little hint of Kids in the Hall style humor in there too, with when they started referencing the darkness of Tim Hortons, and that's when I really started to laugh out loud.
And they managed to, they weaved a subplot, like some subplots in there as well as because I don't know if you could tell, but randomly Robbins got robbed at the end of their ad. Like
And
there
I
was a
love-
voice like, "Give me your donuts, ma'am."
Give me your donut. But they were referring to it as one donut. I'm gonna have the donut. But then it's like, give me your donuts.
Yeah. I too will have the donut.
The donuts. Yeah. Robin's Donuts, where there's only one donut.
Mm-hmm. I think like when we came up with this idea for a guerrilla marketing campaign slash partnership that hopefully would materialize in the future with Robbins, I didn't know if people would hop on board, but they have. We have several more voicemails with Robbins ads that I'm going to put off to either next week or to the next Keep Canada Weird mailbag, which is on the horizon. Do you want to reflect a little bit on the Robbins promotion we're running here? How do you feel about the way this is turning out?
I was really happy with the ads I heard last week, and then I was blown away by the ads that we had waiting for us this week. They were incredible. If Robbins doesn't catch wind of this and doesn't eventually reach out to us, I'd be very surprised because, I mean, they're getting Americans who have never been to Robbins making Robbins ads.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Last week we had the great Dan who wrote the song. He was from somewhere in the UK, Cumbria in the UK. We gave him like Robbins ad of the week. Of all the ones we heard this week, I don't know if there's one you want to say that's your favorite.
Oh man, I don't think we should do it. I don't think we should do that. They're all awesome. Everybody's ad has been at least awesome. And I think that we want people to keep them coming, keep the Robbins ads coming. And if you've already done a Robbins ad and then you've heard somebody who you think took it up a notch, then do another one and take it up another notch even further. So that's what I'd like to see.
You know, I did get an email from a listener who told me they wrote to Robbins Donuts on our behalf saying you need to work out something with these guys at Keep Canada Weird. I'm not saying an email campaign is necessary, but if anyone does send an email to Robbins about this, so be it. You wouldn't be the first.
Well, they should, if you're going to send an email to Robin, CC Jordan on it so that we
can read it. Yes.
Can read it.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to say it right now. We did, I'm going to decide right now. We did $5 in a Robbins gift card if we play your voicemail on the show. You just got to email me at nighttimepodcast@gmail.com. Let me know your address and I'll send you a $5 gift card for Robbins if we played your Robbins ad. If you CC me in an email to Robbins, for the first 10 people who email Robbins Donuts about our campaign and CC nighttimepodcast@gmail.com in the email, the first 10 will also get the same Keep Canada Weird swag pack that everybody will get by having a voicemail plus a $5 Robbins Donuts gift card. Is that
That's
fair?
a great idea.
And is that clear
Yeah.
what I'm offering?
I think so. I'm quite clear on it. And so what's the email again that they're going to be using to CC?
They will email us they will CC us at nighttimepodcast@gmail.com. And it would, in Robbins Donuts email address, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure you can find it online. If you're, you know, you'll figure that out. Well, I think we baked a beautiful cake tonight, Aaron, a Keep Canada Weird cake. Let's put it in a box, wrap it up, and put a bow on this episode.
Yeah, throw a little frosting on there while you're at it.
On the box.
I did. Yeah. And the cake. I didn't hear you mention frosting.
It's just a pound cake. It's a box. This episode
is
a
dry brick of pound cake.
Yeah, that's appropriate. That's what we made tonight. Regardless of whatever it was, let's put a bow on this. Handsome Aaron Airport. Until next time.
Jordan, until next time.
Let's be more careful when we're driving together. Although, again, I don't think I did anything wrong. We were stopped at a light when a car smashed into me. It happened outside of a Robbins Donuts. I'm not going to say Tim Hortons sent the reckless driver, but it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it would. There's motive there. But Jordan, until next time, let's not forget to ask each other what we're drinking at the start of the show. We forgot again.
And I have something to say. I'm drinking a new Twinings lemon and ginger tea, which is delicious.
Oh, I've had that. I've had that before. Yep. And I'm drinking something similar and a little different from what I have been drinking lately. It's a No Boats on Sunday raspberry and watermelon vodka soda.
Ooh,
so it's not.
That sounds great.
Yeah. It's refreshing and there's no sugar and it's a nice little nightcap to have while recording Keep Canada Weird. Once we finish the guerrilla campaign for Robins, I'm gonna start a guerrilla campaign for No Boats on Sunday.
I want to thank you for helping Aaron and I fulfill our mission to keep Canada weird, but let me use this as an opportunity to call out to you for even greater support in this important work. If something weird happens in your neck of the woods, let us know about it. If you have any thoughts, theories, opinions, or feedback on anything you heard tonight, we want to hear about that too. The best way to reach us is by sending a voice message using the voice recorder that can be found at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. We're excited to hear from you. Now, before we part, let me end with some thanks. First, a big thanks to Aaron for sharing another evening with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. A shout out to the internet's favorite cult leader, Unicole, who provides our intro and outro voiceovers, and Monty Data, who provides the outro version of O Canada that you're about to hear. And then lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. Now, on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed. Maureen and Deborah, thank you for going premium. If anyone else would like to support the show, you can do it in a variety of ways. First of all, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple dollars a month, and that money funds the creation of the show. But the premium feed will also give you the episodes 2 days early, give them to you ad-free, and give you access to a full back catalog of Nighttime episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium at nighttimepodcast.com/subscribe. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still give the show a huge hand by sharing this episode on social media and letting all your like-minded friends know why they should listen. Your support is very much appreciated. Now, until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let us know if you see anything weird.
Keep Canada Weird is written, hosted, and produced by the Nighttime Podcast.
And now to our viewers and listeners everywhere, good night.
One last thing to do, we got to pick a story of the night. We had the Halifax quote-unquote bear attack, the mysterious RVs turning up outside of a mansion in Vancouver over the last 6 years. We had the 911 call for a ride. We had the lottery-ish win. And I guess we could consider one of the stories the Robins Donuts ads because they took up so much of the episode. What has been the highlight of the episode for you?
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't like to go with the voicemails. I don't think.
Let's yeah, it's not fair. Yeah. Let's leave them out
because they're clearly my favorite.
Yeah.
So I think let's just stick with just the stories, and it's got to be the bear attack story in Halifax because I'm a fan of someone who can weave a beautiful tale, and this man did, and I look forward to all of his beautiful stories in the future.
I got to agree. It's a bit of a mystery. You got a kind of a weird dude in the center of it. It's so bizarre. Like why would you come up with this story of a bear attack if that is what he's done and it's fabricated all this? If you get in a situation where you don't want to tell the police what actually happened, for your instincts to be like, I was attacked by a bear. Like, that's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, have a seat and I'll tell you a tale. I was mauled to death by a bear, and I've come back from the dead to tell you about it and have you staple my wounds.